They weren't rich, they weren't loud, and they definitely weren't invited. But Nia and Zaria Rhodes, 13-year-old twin sisters from the south side of Eastbridge, weren't looking for invitations. They were looking for a fight, not the kind that left bruises, the kind that made people stop and see you. For nearly a year, every Saturday morning began the same way. Before the sun scraped over the rooftops, the girls were already dressed in the dark, tugging on hand-me-down hoodies and tightening the fraying laces on their sneakers. Their steps echoed down the cracked sidewalks of their neighborhood as they passed flickering street lamps, boarded-up corner stores, and the same barking dog behind the same rusted gate. They didn't walk to school, they walked to work. The Gold Dust thrift shop sat tucked between a payday loan office and a vacant laundromat. Its windows were yellowed and dusty, and its sign blinked like it had a stutter. Inside, Mrs. Leona, the owner, ran the shop like it was a five-star hotel. She didn't smile much, didn't talk soft, but she gave the twins a shot. $5 each, she said the first day. You show up on time, you sweep, you fold, you don't steal. That's the deal. They never broke it. Every week they cleaned shelves, sorted hangers, restocked mismatched shoes, and swept up broken glass from the sidewalk where the local teens hung out. Mrs. Leona never said thank you, but she left the cash in a worn envelope on the counter every time. The girls never counted it in front of her. They knew better. People asked sometimes, "Why you girls working like that? Ain't y'all in school?" They just nod politely, smile, and keep folding, because the answer didn't need to be said out loud. They were saving for something that cost more than money. They were saving for belonging. Eastbridge Martial Arts Academy wasn't just a dojo, it was a kingdom. The first time they saw it was on a walk home from the bus stop. The glass windows gleamed. The walls inside were lined with trophies taller than they were. Kids moved in unison on the mat, punching, blocking, shouting, like a perfectly trained army. It looked like something from a movie, something they weren't supposed to reach. But Nia and Zaria didn't believe in supposed to. For 11 months, they didn't buy snacks at school. They walked instead of catching the bus. They hand-washed their clothes and mended their own socks. They studied YouTube videos to teach themselves how to repair the soles of their sneakers. When other kids posted dance videos online, they practiced kata movements in their bedroom with pillows as targets. And finally, on a Thursday afternoon in March, they walked into Eastbridge with their father in a crumpled envelope. 1 month. Paid in full, he said, placing it on the desk. The receptionist, a woman with tight lips and tired eyes, raised an eyebrow. "We usually need a card on file," she said. "We don't have one," Zaria replied, "but we'll pay the rest, week by week. We'll earn it, we promise." The woman stared at them for a long second, took in their matching clothes, their identical braids, their shoes patched with glue, and the unwavering fire in their eyes. She sighed, took the envelope, and slid 2 registration forms across the counter. "Orientation's Monday," she muttered. They barely slept the night before. Their uniforms were secondhand, slightly too big. Their belts were brand new, stiff, white, untied. Their father had taken off work early to walk them to the front doors. He didn't say much, but when he handed them their gym bags, his hands lingered. "You girls go in there," he said, voice low, "and don't you let anyone make you small." The dojo smelled like polish and pine. The floor gleamed. The air buzzed. Photos of black belts hung like sacred portraits. Names they didn't recognize. Faces they didn't forget. Every child moved with purpose. Quick feet, sharp stances, shouts in perfect harmony. Zaria's heart thudded. Nia swallowed hard. In the far corner stood 2 boys. Older, bigger, confident in the way that only boys who'd never been humbled could be. Trayvon Banks, with arms folded and a smirk already on his lips, and Malik Carter, casually bouncing a tennis ball between his hands like he was too good to warm up. "That's them," a girl whispered next to them, adjusting her belt. "Don't mess with Trayvon and Malik. They think they own this place." Nia and Zaria didn't answer. They weren't here to make friends. They weren't here to make enemies. They were here to earn something no one could give them: space. The first class hit like adrenaline. Every command from Sensei Molina was crisp, powerful, and immediate. The room moved like a single heartbeat. The twins tried to keep up. Their form sloppy, but their focus perfect. They were slower. They were smaller. But they listened. Sensei noticed. So did the boys. Malik chuckled when Zarya fumbled a high block. "That's not how you block," he muttered. "She looks like she's flapping at flies." Trayvon laughed, loud enough for the room to hear. Nia's neck burned, but she said nothing. They kept moving. After class, during the bow-out, Trayvon brushed past Nia and whispered, "Hope you're not planning on staying long." Zarya didn't blink. Nia didn't flinch. But something inside them locked in. By the second week, the whispers grew bolder. They were always watching now. The boys. They didn't need to speak. Their laughter did the work. Their eyes did the damage. During drills, Malik would accidentally bump into them. During cooldowns, Trayvon would mimic their movements behind their backs, earning snickers from his little crew. They never said it directly, but they didn't have to. They didn't think the girls belonged there. Poor girls, working girls, not academy girls. One afternoon after class, Trayvon leaned in by the lockers. "You know this place ain't a charity, right?" Zarya laced her shoes slowly. "We paid." Malik leaned against the wall. "With what? Bottle caps?" "We saved," Nia said. Trayvon snorted. "You saved? And for what? You're never going to keep up." Then a voice cut through the air. "You done talking, or you need more attention." It was Isaiah Bell, a senior brown belt. Calm, massive, quiet. He didn't wait for a reply. Just walked past them and tied his belt like he'd seen it all before. Zarya didn't smile, but she remembered that moment, tucked it away. That night back home, they sat at the kitchen table while their father packed leftovers into Tupperware. "What happened today?" he asked. Zarya shrugged. "Nothing." Nia looked down. "We didn't start anything." Their father nodded slowly. "You want to keep going?" They answered in unison. "Yes." His eyes softened, just for a moment. "Then walk in tall, but don't just show them, make them see." You ever notice how silence in a room full of people doesn't mean peace? It can mean pressure, tension, the kind that crawls under your skin like electricity. That's what the dojo felt like that Thursday evening. No shouting, no laughter. Just eyes watching the clock, waiting for sparring day to begin. The twins had been at Eastbridge Martial Arts Academy for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of getting bumped, brushed off, laughed at, and ignored. And still, they hadn't missed a single class. I think that's what scared them most. Not the fact that Nia and Zarya were there, but the fact that they weren't leaving. That kind of quiet resilience, it terrifies people who build power on fear. "All right, pair up," Sensei Molina called out, voice like a whip through the air. "Light sparring only. Respect the bow. Controlled strikes only. Remember, discipline before dominance." Everyone moved quickly, except the twins, because no one moved toward them. Again. Zarya looked to Nia. "Same story." "Yep." Trayvon was already pairing with Malik, their hands popping knuckles, grinning like wolves. That's when it happened. Sensei Molina turned around, glanced at the twins standing awkwardly at the back, and pointed. "You two," he said, "take the mat." They looked up. "With each other?" Nia asked. "No," he said. "With them." He nodded at Trayvon and Malik. The whole dojo shifted. You could feel it. That ripple. That snap energy running through the students. A few muffled laughs. Some whispered bets. One kid mouthed R.I.P. to another. Zara's heart dropped to her stomach. But Nia just stepped forward. She didn't blink. Trayvon cracked his neck like he was prepping for a championship fight. Malik smirked and tossed his gum into a tissue. They stood across from the girls. Nia looked like stone. Zarya looked like she'd swallowed fire. "Remember, light contact," Sensei warned. "Discipline, not ego." The bows were shallow. The stares were anything but. The first 10 seconds were a blur. Malik lunged at Nia, fast, cocky, trying to check her early. A slap kick to the ribs. She dodged, barely, and backpedaled. Zarya squared off with Trayvon, who did this thing where he danced side to side like he was mocking her. "Don't flinch now," he whispered. "Might ruin the hair." She didn't flinch. He threw a jab. Fast, high, showy. She ducked and rolled out. That's when something shifted. I don't know if it was instinct or that sixth sense that comes when you've been silent too long. But Nia stopped retreating. She planted her foot, spun low, and swept Malik's leg out. Thud! He hit the mat so hard the floor shook. The dojo went silent. Malik blinked like someone unplugged his body. Zarya didn't even glance, because Trayvon came at her next. Harder now, angrier. But she saw it coming. She countered. A palm strike to his shoulder, a low parry, then a hip turn that threw him just off balance. He stumbled. The twins didn't attack. They just stood there, breathing steady, calm, composed. It wasn't about winning, it was about being undeniable. Sensei Molina clapped once. Reset! This time the bows were deeper. The boys didn't smirk. Something had cracked. Not bones. Perception. After class, no one said anything. But the dojo felt different. The twins didn't gloat, didn't laugh. They just bowed, walked to their corner, and packed up. But the silence wasn't sharp anymore. It was considering. That night, Zarya stared at the ceiling in their shared bedroom. You think they'll mess with us tomorrow? She whispered. Nia, who was already half asleep, murmured. Let 'em try. The next day, something wild happened. People talked to them. A girl named Alina asked if they wanted to stretch together. One of the younger brown belts gave them tips on breathing control. Even Isaiah, big, quiet mountain of a man Isaiah, nodded at them as he walked past. It didn't take a speech. Or revenge. Just proof. They'd earned it. But here's the thing about underdogs. People love you when you rise, but only as long as you don't rise too fast. And that's when Coach Roland returned. Roland was a senior instructor at Eastbridge, a former national champion, 6 feet tall, broad shoulders, sharp eyes, reputation like iron. He hadn't seen the twins before, but he noticed them immediately. Who are the girls with the steady feet? He asked Melina. They're new. Names? Nia and Zariah Rhodes. Interesting. That weekend, Roland called for a special Saturday class. All belts, optional sparring. Let's push the limit, he said. Trayvon and Malik signed up immediately. Zarya hesitated. Nia didn't. We're going. Saturday came. The dojo was buzzing. Kids with headgear, mouth guards, sweatbands, stretching, warming up, focused. Roland stood in the center like a general. He wasn't like Melina. Melina taught with calm. Roland taught with intensity. Pain teaches, fire purifies, he liked to say. The twins stepped onto the mat. Roland's eyes narrowed. You two, he called. Step forward. They did. You ever face a second-degree black belt? Zarya swallowed. No, sir. You will now. He pointed at Trayvon. Show her how we do things here. Now this wasn't friendly. This wasn't even neutral. This was a test. Roland wasn't looking for fairness. He was looking for dominance. And for once, I felt fear, because Trayvon had a point to prove. And this time, Zarya was on the mat alone. You can feel when the room turns on you. It's not just the silence, it's the waiting. The weight of eyes hoping you fail, so they don't have to change how they see the world. That's what Zarya felt as she stepped onto the mat alone. Across from her, Trayvon Banks stood cracking his knuckles, flanked by Coach Roland, who watched like a hawk. This wasn't a lesson. This was a warning, a public reminder of where she belonged. But they forgot something. Zarya didn't come to belong. She came to become. She could still remember her first day at the dojo, the long stares, the smirks, the whispers. She remembered how Malik bumped her shoulder like it was a game, how Trayvon laughed at their worn shoes, how no one stepped aside to make room for them on the mat. That memory lived in her spine now, not like shame, but like steel. As the crowd shifted around the sparring circle, no one cheered, no one clapped. They watched, the same way people watch storms, half hoping to see destruction. Bow, Coach Roland ordered. They bowed. Trayvon didn't look her in the eye. Begin. Trayvon moved first, fast, aggressive, confident. He had the kind of swagger that came from years of being praised without challenge. He launched a spinning kick, the kind that's meant to scare more than strike. Zarya pivoted, Slipped just outside its range. No panic. Just breathe. She remembered Nia's voice from the night before. You don't beat people like Trayvon with speed. You beat them with patience. Strike two. Jab to the chest. She blocked high, felt the sting up her forearm, but she didn't move back. Then a combo. Kick, punch, punch. Zaria slipped under the last one and countered with a low parry. He didn't expect her to still be standing. He expected her to crumble. She didn't hit him, but she didn't flinch. That's when it hit me, as someone watching from the sidelines. This girl was not here to survive. She was here to speak without words. Trayvon's face changed. His grin faded. He circled her again. And I swear to you, in that moment, it stopped being about sparring. It became a statement. Roland wasn't satisfied. Trayvon, again, he barked. Faster, sharper, no mercy. Trayvon frowned, but this was his shot, his stage. And Zaria, she was just the girl in his way. He charged, low punch to the ribs. Zaria blocked. She felt the bones in her wrist bend but hold. Then a sweep. She jumped, just in time. He turned with a back fist, and this time, it connected, right across her jaw. The dojo gasped. She stumbled back, eyes blinking, hands still raised. She felt blood in her mouth. She tasted metal. Her ears rang. But she didn't fall. She didn't fall. She stood there, breath shaky, jaw tight, eyes clear. Roland said nothing. Trayvon took one step forward. You done yet? He said, his voice dripping with arrogance. Zaria straightened, and for the first time she spoke. You don't get to break people just because you're afraid of them. The room fell silent. Even Roland blinked. That sentence? It wasn't defiance, it was revelation. Zaria looked at him, then at Trayvon, and for a moment her breath slowed. She remembered her father's voice. Your body might be small, but your presence doesn't have to be. Trayvon moved again, but he was slower now, sloppy, rattled. And Zaria, she was sharp. He threw a jab. She ducked. He spun. She pivoted. Then with the precision of every early morning chore, every thrift shop sweep, every night she practiced on cracked floors, she moved in, a palm strike, right to the chest, not to hurt, but to end it. Trayvon stumbled, lost balance, hit the mat. It wasn't violent, it wasn't loud, but it was final. You can feel when the room turns on you. It's not just the silence, it's the waiting, the weight of eyes hoping you fail, so they don't have to change how they see the world. That's what Zaria felt as she stepped onto the mat alone. Across from her, Trayvon Banks stood cracking his knuckles, flanked by Coach Roland, who watched like a hawk. This wasn't a lesson. This was a warning, a public reminder of where she belonged. But they forgot something. Zaria didn't come to belong. She came to become. Trayvon was still on the mat, blinking, confused, trying to figure out how someone like her had just stopped someone like him. He looked at Roland, expecting either anger or instruction, but got neither. Roland wasn't looking at him. He was staring at Zaria. The entire dojo felt frozen in time. Zaria breathed hard, blood still on her lip, eyes firm. She didn't raise her fists again. She didn't take a victory pose. She simply bowed. Not to Trayvon, but to the room. To every student who'd ever been ignored. To every kid who was told they weren't good enough because of their background, their clothes, their accent. That bow wasn't a submission, it was a declaration. And the dojo responded, not with applause, but with stillness. The kind of silence that means something sacred just happened. Coach Roland stepped into the ring. He stood in front of Zaria, looked her in the eye for the first time, not as a challenge, not as a test, as a man who had just been shown the truth. Rhodes, he said quietly, you don't fight like a white belt. Zaria didn't answer. She didn't have to. Nia came forward, pride radiating from her body like heat. She threw a towel over Zaria's shoulder. Ready to go? She asked. Zaria nodded. But before they could leave, Roland raised a hand. One more thing, he said. Next week, both of you. You're testing for your yellow belts. On me, somewhere behind them, someone clapped. Then another. Then a ripple of palms filled the room. And for the first time since stepping into that dojo, they felt welcome. The news spread fast. People started asking them questions, not mocking but genuine curiosity. Alina started inviting them to spar. Isaiah offered to drill after class. Even Malik, stubborn, bitter Malik, nodded once in quiet respect. And Trayvon? He didn't speak to them for days, until one evening, as they were packing up, he walked over, looked at Zarya. "You're strong," he muttered. "Didn't expect that." Zarya zipped her bag. "That's the point." He nodded, walked away. No apology. But something shifted. What shifted most wasn't the students. It was the dojo itself, the culture, the air, the way people started watching who they ignored. How Roland adjusted his tone, not softer but fairer. How Sensei Molina began each class with a new rule. Respect before technique. Even the parents noticed. Mrs. Cruz, who once made a comment about free kids slowing down the program, began bringing snacks for everyone. She said nothing about it, just left them quietly on the bench. But actions spoke louder than pride. One Saturday, Coach Roland called the twins over after practice. He handed them a worn folder. "This dojo used to have a scholarship program," he said, "before the pandemic. Never restarted it until now. I want you two to be the first names on the new list." Nia held the folder like it was made of glass. Zariah blinked. For a second, neither could speak, but their father did. He stepped forward from the shadows, where he'd been watching quietly the entire class. "You don't know what that means to us." Roland looked at him. "I think I do." The next tournament came 6 weeks later. Nia and Zaria stood side by side, trembling in matching white G's, belts bright as sunlight. They didn't win, but people remembered them. Because they didn't just show skill, they showed soul. And after the last match, a coach from the regional team approached their father.